In this video, we'll talk about static keyword. From the start itself, when we have written the first code, we are looking at the static keyword and the question still remains, right? What is this static? So we know what is method is, we know what is return type, we know what is class, but again, the problem gets stuck here in static itself. Now to make you understand this, let's take an example here. So let's say we have a example of mobile phone and every mobile phone has a brand. So brand will be string, so it's a string brand. And we can have a default value for it. We can have int, which is price, and then string network. Okay, and we can also make it for a specific brand as well, but let's keep it simple. Let's have a mobile phone, different brands, different price, different network, and we'll say name. Okay, now see, name itself of a mobile phone changes, right? So we used to say normal phones, then we got smartphones, and now we have foldable phones, right? So we can have a different name to phones nowadays. Every phone is called a smartphone now because that's what we call. Initially it used to call mobile, then we used to call that phone, right? So we have a name here as well. What do you call a mobile phone? So now it's a smartphone. Okay, so if you want to work with this mobile phone, of course you have to create an object, right? So if I say mobile obj, if I will say mobile obj1 and equal to new mobile, and of course every mobile will have a different parameter here. What I will do is I will just remove this network just to keep it simple. We just want three variables here. obj1.brand, I want to set the brand here. Let's say the brand is Apple, since I'm using an Apple phone here. And then the price, let's say $1,500. And what else we have? We have a name. So what do you call a mobile phone? So currently, if we talk about Apple phones or any phones nowadays, we call them as a smartphone. Okay. I know this variable doesn't make sense, but just for the example, I'm saying name is equal to smartphone, right? Now, if you talk about this phone here, we have all these values, right? Now, of course, if I create multiple objects, it should have a different value. Of course, every object is different, so we can have a different value to it. If I come back to Apple, let's say the next phone is of Samsung and the price is, let's say, $1,700. And then we also call them as a smartphone. Okay. The only thing is you have to change it here as well, obj2, and then I can print the values as well. You know what I will do? I will just create a method which will print everything. I will say public void show. It should print all the details here. So it should print brand so that I don't have to print that every time. And I will say price. And I will print name as well. Now by doing this, what I'm doing is instead of printing it here every value, I can simply call obj1.show and obj2.show. So it will print its own value, not other values. And if I come back here, compile and run, you can see we got the values, right? Nothing complex here. The thing is, if we talk about these variables here, they are called instance variable, right? Now, if you create a variable inside a method, that's a local variable. But these are your instance variable. And every variable for a particular object is different, right? The value will be different. Now what I want is, I want to have the name to be same for all the objects. See, because what is happening is in your memories, so let's say we have a JVM, a big JVM, and inside this you have a stack where you have all the reference and locations and address, and then you have a heap memory. So in total, you can see we got two objects, right? One with mobile obj1, and one is obj2, and then of course they have the address as well. So this is 101, 103, and of course this will be 101, 103, and you will be referring that, right? So this is referred here, this is referred here. Now that's how we can basically use it, and every object will have a different value. But what if I want to have a common value for all the objects? The problem with this is, if I want to make sure that the name variable should not be a part of the object, because that's an instance variable now, it will be a part of the object, and every object will have a different value. I want this name to be common for all. How do I do that? Now, if you make this variable as static, now by doing that, what we are doing is, we are making this name variable common to all the object. What I mean by that is, let's say after some time, if I say obj1 dot name, if I change the name to, let's say, a phone here, just a phone, not a smartphone anymore. If you make this as a phone, and if you see the values, it will affect all the objects. You can see we are trying to change the name of obj1, but we are actually changing the name of obj2 as well. You can see this is also phone now. The reason is the static variable is actually shared by all the objects. So basically we'll not be having individual static variable for every object. We have a common variable which will be used by all the objects. Imagine there is a common variable here, name, and all the objects will be referring to the same variable. So if you change the value for this, it will affect all the objects. Okay. Now this is why we use static. Now the beauty is, see why we have to refer brand with obj1, price with obj1 is because every object will have a different value for it. Now don't you think name is a static variable and it will be common for all the objects? And that's why you can actually call name with the help of a class name itself. You can simply say mobile.name. So static variables should be called with their class name, not with objects. You can call with objects, but avoid it. And that's why you can see it gives you warning as well. It says the static field mobile.name should be accessed in a static way, which is using a mobile, the class name, which is mobile. Okay. So the point to remember here is static variables are actually shared by different objects. And if you want to refer to a static variable, you can use a class name. So there's a different area in your JVM where you have all the static variables. And here as well, I should say mobile. Now the thing is, in non-static methods, you can use static variables. There's no harm. Okay, and that's the point to remember. In the next video, we'll talk about what if you create a static method. Yes, we can do that. We can create a static method. And the question is, can I use instance variables there? Okay, we'll see that in the next video. But here, we talked about what is a static keyword. So static keyword means you are making something as a class member, not an object member. So static, this name here belongs to a class, not to the object. And that's why you were able to use this with the help of a class name. Okay. And then you're saving memory as well, because not every object will have their own value for it or their own copy for it. So that's about static variable. In the next video, we'll talk about static methods.